Imagine a world where there's no Europe, Asia, Africa, Americas, or Australia. Just one endless stretch of land. Deserts, jungles, mountains, but all stitched together into a single megacontinent, Pangaea. No need for world maps, there's just a map. No transatlantic flights. No need to ask, which continent are you from? We're all from the same giant piece of real estate. Sounds simple? It's anything but. Today on What If, we dive into the timeline where Earth's continents never drifted apart, and history becomes completely unrecognizable. In our timeline, about 200 million years ago, Earth had Pangaea, one massive landmass where dinosaurs could walk from what's now New York to Morocco without getting their feet wet. Then tectonic plates decided they were tired of group life. Pangaea broke into Laurasia and Gondwana. Then, even more splits. North America, South America, Africa, Europe, Asia, Australia, Antarctica. Like a very slow-motion family drama. Over millions of years, these drifting continents shaped Earth's climate, ocean currents, and the evolution of life itself. Result? Unique animals and plants on different continents, separate human civilizations, and those really annoying geography quizzes in school. And yes, the reason we have kangaroos only in Australia and not casually hopping around Paris is because of this breakup. So, let's imagine the point of divergence. Tectonic plates look at each other, shrug, and decide, you know what? Let's stay together. Breaking up is too much work. No Atlantic Ocean opens up. No Indian Ocean either. Instead, Pangaea stays whole, a single megacontinent ringed by one endless superocean. Dinosaurs live and go extinct on it. Mammals evolve on it, and eventually, humans show up, all living on the same piece of land, without needing to invent ships to discover new worlds. The first big consequence? Climate chaos, but not the kind you're thinking of. A permanent Pangaea would have massive deserts deep inland, so far from the coast that rain can't reach them. The coast would be humid jungles, but the interior might look like a never-ending Sahara. Imagine entire civilizations growing up surrounded by endless sand, while lush rainforests hug the edges of the world. And forget about cute polar bears on ice caps. The climate near the poles would still be cold, but huge ice sheets wouldn't shape the land the way they did on our real continents. With no continents drifting apart, evolution looks completely different. Animals that, in our world, were stuck on isolated continents would keep mixing. Maybe mammoths live alongside giant marsupials, and South American terror birds stalk herds of prehistoric horses. Australia wouldn't become the land of marsupials. They'd have to compete with bigger, nastier predators coming overland from everywhere else. The result? A more uniform, but wildly chaotic animal kingdom, where saber-tooths, kangaroo-like creatures, and ancient elephants might all share the same savanna. And now, the humans. When our ancestors show up, there's no new world and old world. Everyone lives on the same world from the start. Instead of separate civilizations in China, Mesopotamia, Mesoamerica, and so on, humanity expands across Pangaea's vast interior and coasts. Trade routes crisscross the entire supercontinent. You could theoretically walk from what we'd now call Spain to Japan, though it might take you a few decades, a lot of water, and an army of camels. The Great Wall? Probably longer. Empires? Probably bigger, because there's so much connected space to conquer. Imagine if Rome never had to stop at the Mediterranean, or if Chinese dynasties could send armies westward without worrying about massive seas in between. History might become a single gigantic tug-of-war between East and West. Rome and Han China might actually meet in a clash of legionaries and silk-robed warriors. Or maybe they'd trade and merge cultures centuries before Columbus ever dreamed of a ship. And speaking of Columbus, he'd have no job. With no Atlantic to cross, there's no America to discover. Everyone already knows what's out there, More land, more cities, more people. No age of discovery. No tragic clash of isolated continents meeting each other after thousands of years apart. Civilizations would develop together, borrowing and stealing ideas in real time. Writing, bronze, iron, the wheel, maybe even gunpowder spreading like wildfire from one end of the world to the other. The modern age? It would look nothing like ours. Instead of Europe stumbling into global empires by accident, power would belong to whoever controlled the vast trade routes of Pangaea. We'd have megacities the size of small countries, built where all those trade roads meet. Wars would be massive, continental-scale affairs, and so would culture, art, philosophy, and science. Imagine philosophers from a Western kingdom debating mathematicians from the Far East, live and in person, centuries earlier. And the 21st century? Well, no need for overseas shipping. Everything moves overland by rail, hyperloop, or roads that cross the whole world. Air travel wouldn't need to hop oceans, just jump across endless plains and mountain ranges. And your weather app would warn you not about hurricanes over the Atlantic, but about sandstorms rolling in from the great central desert that covers half the continent. In short, a world that feels at once smaller, because everyone's connected, and impossibly vast, because Pangaea's size would dwarf any modern nation. A single supercontinent, one endless road trip, and no need to argue about which continent you're from, because we'd all be from the same one. So, let's fast forward a few thousand years on our eternal supercontinent. Without the Atlantic, Pacific, or Indian Oceans splitting billions of people apart, human history stops being a patchwork of isolated chapters and becomes one loud, messy, always arguing, yet shared story. Without natural ocean barriers, the first empires wouldn't just be big, they'd be gigantic. Picture a single empire stretching from what we now call Western Europe, all the way to Eastern Asia, stitched together by endless roads, camel caravans, and later, steam trains crossing deserts bigger than most countries. Dynasties might last longer, or collapse even more spectacularly. After all, the bigger the empire, the harder it crashes when it falls. Trade would be the real emperor of Pangaea. Silk, spices, gold, iron, new crops. Everything would spread everywhere, centuries earlier. Imagine potatoes from distant highlands, meeting rice from lush southern coasts and wheat from fertile river valleys, all ending up in the same stew long before Caesar ever ordered lunch. Religion would look completely different too. Instead of faiths developing in isolation, holy books and prophets would travel across Pangaea almost in real time. Some local cults might stay small, but the major religions could merge, split, and remix endlessly as merchants and pilgrims swap stories from one end of the continent to the other. Picture a single faith blending elements of Buddhism, Christianity, Zoroastrianism, and who knows what else. A spiritual buffet where everyone adds a little spice. Then there's technology. With no oceans blocking the way, ideas wouldn't get stuck waiting for a ship. Bronze, iron, steel, the compass, paper, printing, gunpowder. They'd appear once, then ripple across the whole supercontinent like wildfire. No second reinvention centuries later. No Columbus sailing west to find east. Instead, everything moves overland, first by foot and caravan, then by railway and beyond. Writing systems might converge too. Instead of hundreds of alphabets and scripts, maybe just 2 or 3 big writing traditions would dominate. Imagine vast libraries in megacities, copying and preserving scrolls and books from every corner of the continent, and scholars, traveling thousands of kilometers to read them, all without ever needing to set sail. Art would become a glorious mashup of East and West, North and South. Greek columns next to curved eastern roofs, mosaics showing desert caravans meeting jade dragons, epic poems telling the same stories, but swapping out local heroes and monsters like collectible cards. And of course, war wouldn't disappear. A united supercontinent doesn't mean peace. It means bigger armies, longer front lines, and even bigger collapses. One emperor might rule half of Pangaea, only to lose it all to a nomadic horde sweeping in from the endless central plains. A horde that later builds its own cities and writes poetry about its conquests. In the long run, technology would leap forward faster. With so many people connected, breakthroughs spread quickly. Steam engines could arrive centuries earlier. Printing presses could spark a Pangaean renaissance bigger and noisier than anything we know. Gunpowder wouldn't stay secret in just one region. Everyone would have it almost overnight. Industrial revolutions wouldn't be limited to small islands off Europe's coast. They'd roll across thousands of kilometers of cities, mines, and workshops. And language? Over millennia, local dialects would survive, but trade and government might create a few giant lingua francas. Maybe a version of Proto-Indo-European dominates the West, while a Sino-Tibetan language rules the East. Or maybe, thanks to bustling trade hubs, merchants create something entirely new, a Pangaean Creole spoken from coast to coast. By the modern era, the real countries of Pangaea wouldn't be divided by seas, but by deserts, rivers, and mountains. The Himalayas, the Urals, the great central deserts, these become the natural borders of cultures and nations. But even then, it's still one map. No overseas colonies, no age of discovery as we know it, just endless inland exploration, building cities where once there was wilderness. And perhaps the most fascinating difference, there would never be a sense of the other side of the world. No legends of mysterious lands beyond the sea. No tragic first contact between people separated for thousands of years. Everyone would always have been distant neighbors, part of one sprawling, complicated family. They'd argue, trade, fight, borrow each other's words and recipes, but never be total strangers. In this timeline, human history isn't a series of separate chapters spread across scattered continents. It's one giant, unbroken epic, written by countless hands in many scripts, across a continent that never stopped being whole. So here we are, one giant, never-broken continent. No new world or old world, just the world, full of people arguing about who invented noodles first, building railways that stretch thousands of miles, and writing epic poems about the world's longest road trip. No age of discovery, no need for Columbus to prove the Earth is round. Everyone's always been here, together, sharing, fighting, trading, occasionally stealing recipes, but never quite strangers. And sure, maybe the endless deserts in the middle of Pangaea would make Google Maps cry. Maybe you'd still get stuck in traffic somewhere between what we'd call France and China. But hey, at least you wouldn't need a passport to cross the Atlantic, because there'd be no Atlantic to cross. In the end, it's a reminder that history is just one version of what could have happened. And sometimes, the weirdest what if is that things actually did fall apart, and somehow that made us who we are. So, what do you think? Would living on a giant supercontinent be better, worse, or just a lot more sandy? Drop your theories in the comments below. And if you like this trip through a world that never cracked, why not do something the real Pangaea never had? Smash the like button, subscribe, and ring that bell, because in any timeline, the only supercontinent that never drifts away is the YouTube algorithm. See you in the next episode of What If? And remember, tectonic plates may drift, but subscribers, hopefully they stay.